Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Life in Motion. I'm your host, Grace Becker, and today is November 6th. Y'all, I cannot believe freaking October went by so quick. I blinked and it was gone. I'm pretty sure October was just a fever dream for me. It went by so fast. And we're already in November. And my calendar is already looking really booked. So things are just picking up this year. I don't know if anyone else has felt that way, that it's just been such a busy year, which very well could be just because a lot of people in my life are going through big changes and there's lots of things to get excited about and lots of events to go to. But yeah, life has been lifing lately. How was everyone's Halloween? I hope you had a good Halloween. Jaden and I watched A Quiet Place, and we started A Quiet Place 2 while we had some dinner and just hung out. But yeah. And then tonight we're going to go get Chinese food, and I'm so excited. If any of you live in the Fargo area, Mr. Walk, it's over kind of by like Costco area. It's so good. I love Chinese food. And they are killer with their takeout. It's so good. So good. But I'm really excited for today's content. Today, we're going to be talking about, I'm not really sure what I'm going to title this podcast yet. Obviously, you know what it is because you're seeing it. But basically, it's like the seven laws, different universal laws, not like statutes, nothing like that. But I got this inspiration for today's podcast from a TikToker or content creator. Their and I'll leave it in the show notes down below, but their is nsa.ei. So shout out to them for the inspiration. And then I just kind of did my own research from there. And yeah, some of them I already knew about, but I just thought it was really cool. Different laws, things to know about that I feel like are just not typical things people just know unless you study this. So without further ado, I think we should get into it. I have, how many of them are there? There are 7 different laws. So buckle up. Grab your drink. What I'm drinking right now is just some water. Jaden and I are going to have Chinese later, so I'm sure I'll have a more fun drink for that. The first law I have for everyone is the Kidlin's Law, which basically means that if you write down a problem clearly and specifically, you have solved half of it already. Okay, this law really emphasizes the importance of clearly defining a problem before trying to solve it. I don't know if any of you ever run into this. I definitely do a lot. I just see an issue or I have a situation come up and I'm looking at the big picture of everything, how I want it to go, what information do I have already, and it really overwhelms me and causes me to not solve the problem as quickly or not solve it as efficiently. And this law basically says that if you just write it out, clearly define everything and specific as you can, it forces you to organize your thoughts and forces you to see the real issue, which often reveals the path to a solution, right? So when applying this, it's common for like problem solving, different issues that come up. You can use it for business strategies, design thinking. If like I ever had an issue with a client where they had a problem they were presenting to me and I didn't know what to do with it, we could literally just write it down, write out everything that we know as specifically as we can, and probably find the solution to the issue within that. Why does this matter? Well, it matters because clearly defining a problem helps you to avoid missteps or wasted effort. I know that one thing I think Western culture has really preached to me as I've grown is efficiency, right? Like we want it now and we want it like quick and we want it in good condition. So Not only would this help you to solve a problem quicker, but it also helps you to avoid making mistakes. It also helps avoid wasting any time, right? So just honestly, to me, it's like what can you lose? Not much. Like the risks are so low compared to the benefits you gain from actually using this law, right? The impact it has, it transforms vague confusion into actionable insight. So basically, we all have, like I said, that big picture that I think we tend to look at. But when you really zoom in and you write out all the little steps, it gives you more direction, and direction can be turned into action, which I think will make solutions more obvious and attainable. Like that's a big thing when trying to set goals and creating action steps for yourself. You want it to be attainable and realistic, you know? So the key takeaway with this one is that clarity saves time and prevents wasted effort. And you can apply this to really all areas of your life, personal life, journaling problems to help you understand your emotions or your patterns, thought processes. You could apply it to business or work management. You can use it whether it's a project you're working on or maybe like a team meeting. And yeah, it's really great. It helps avoid all the nonsense around you and just like really zone in and focus on the real issue at hand. So that is the Kittlin's Law. If you write down a problem clearly and specifically, you have solved half of it already. Okay, cool. The second one is Petro's Law, which this is a principle, or the principle is the 80-20 rule, which it stands for 80% of results come from 20% effort. So focus on the few actions that matter. So what this means is that a small number of causes or efforts typically produce the majority of results. So like, for example, 80% of sales come from 20% of customers, or 80% of software bugs come from 20% of code. That's one that I got from a friend of mine who's like a big coder gamer person. But I personally really like this one because I'm the type of person that not only do I overthink everything, but I also tend to overdo it when it comes to effort in certain situations. Like I'm the type of person that in college, the professor would ask for a 3-page paper and I'd write a 5-page paper. So sometimes I really overkill it, which can also be a bad thing or a negative thing. So the idea that 80% of consequences come from 20% of causes, right? Or 80% of results come from 20% effort really has changed my mindset and how I focus on the few actions that really, really matter. So, applying this in your real life, I would suggest focusing your energy on the most impactful areas. So, efficiency, time management, prioritization. Oh my gosh, y'all, that was hard for me. Basically, prioritizing the important things. And this matters because it teaches you to prioritize high impact actions, which again saves time and it maximizes your results in the end. And the impact it has is major. You can stop spinning your wheels and start making meaningful progress. A lot of people talk about procrastination, right? I tell my clients all the time that procrastination is less about, avoiding a task, like avoiding the task itself, and more so about avoiding the feeling or the discomfort you feel when performing the task. So think about, for example, homework assignment that you have to do, or in my case, like maybe a progress note you have to get done. The feeling that you get when you're doing that task might equate to some sort of unpleasant feeling. And so you procrastinate, so you prolong that feeling from happening. But when you just focus on the few actions that matter, like maybe it's about 2 hours worth of homework, but you decide, I'm just going to start wherever. I'm just going to start by reading the syllabus. or I'm just going to start by putting in a few things that I know about the note. And I'm going to set a timer for 10 minutes, and then you do it and the 10 minutes goes off and you're like, oh my God, holy shit. Like that actually wasn't so bad. You've already started to expose yourself to that quote unquote unpleasant feeling, and that will yield, better results. You'll get it done faster. And it's just the most proficient way of using your time. So this like law is very applicable to all areas of your life. The key takeaway here is that you need to identify and focus on what truly matters. So what are the takeaways? What is in the homework assignment that you have? What are the the key points you need to make in your paper or your presentation? In my progress note, what are the key points? What are the things that I mostly focused on with the client in the session? Because once you have those defined, you're going to get immediate results at that 80% level. So yeah, that's a key takeaway, and that is Petro's law, or Pareto's law. Pareto's, I think. Don't judge me. Don't come for me, y'all. We know how I can be sometimes. Or the principle of the 80-20 rule. So yeah. The third rule, or law, I should say, is one that I knew more about and that I think is more common, and that is Murphy's Law, which stands for the more you fear something happening, the more likely it is to happen, or anything that can go wrong will go wrong is the more common saying. Meaning, if there is a possibility of error or failure, it's likely to happen often at the worst times. And what I take away from this law really is that it encourages me to plan for possible contingencies, building systems that are resilient, or basically just kind of preparing for the worst case scenario, right? Like preparing for failure, prepare for the worst, but hope for the best kind of thing. And the reason that I think that this one really matters is that it encourages proactive planning and resilience. There are people who struggle with the proactive aspect. I think that a lot of us are reactive, right? Like we just kind of hike up our skirts and we just freaking go and do it. And then later it's like, oh shit, like maybe if I had just taken a minute to prepare, to think about this, I could have avoided this, right? So anything that can go wrong will go wrong, meaning that if there's an opportunity for you to prepare, obviously you can't prepare for everything. That's not realistic, but the more prepared you are, the more confident you will be, and the more likely you are to succeed. So Murphy's Law, unless you're less likely to be like derailed by surprises because you've built in buffers and backups. So being prepared, I think, is the key takeaway here, is that be as prepared as you can. Obviously, we want to hope for the best, but be prepared for the possible worst. So yeah, Murphy's Law. I'm going to be thinking about that one next time I take my licensure exam. I get such bad test anxiety. I usually, knock on wood. Y'all, I need to find wood. Hold on. I don't know if you can hear that, but I usually do pretty well on exams. I just get such bad anxiety. So I'm the type of person where the more I study, except for the day of, I cannot study the day of. I will psych myself out. But the more I study, the more confident I am. And then when I have the test, I usually do pretty good. So yeah. Number 4, Wilson's Law, which means if you prioritize knowledge and intelligence, money will follow. Or another common phrase saying associated with this is that as soon as you find a product that you really like, they will stop making it. Those are two different ways I've heard people talk about this. On the one hand, they're saying if you prioritize knowledge and intelligence, money will follow. And then the other one is that as soon as you find a product you really like, they will stop making it. Meaning that kind of the humorous observation on the customer experience, that the things that we love often become unavailable, right? kind of what's that called? Like costs versus demand, or I'm blanking. Something in demand. I can't remember, but it's an ironic way of describing like the frustration where as soon as you find something that you like, it all of a sudden doesn't become available. But the other end of what I've heard with Wilson's Law in my research is that if you prioritize knowledge and intelligence, money will follow. So if you prioritize making sure that you're educated, that you're knowledgeable on things, you do your research, right? You don't just blurt out an answer, you follow up on it. That money will follow that with you. And so there's a few different things, right, to keep in mind with this. On the one end of, the product idea of this law, why it matters, it reminds you that trends and availability are fleeting. So if you've heard it from that end with the product, trends are fleeting. So unless it's something that really fits with your style, just know that it's going to come and it's also going to go. And it could come back later in life. Trends come and go. So you become more adaptable and less frustrated by the inevitable shifts in products when you understand that this is an inevitable thing, and you're less likely to make decisions that affect, I don't know, like your bank account, for example. But on the other end, with the prioritizing knowledge and intelligence, when you prioritize education is one of those things where people can't take that away from you, right? The knowledge you have, the intelligence that you have, that is something that you earn, that you work for, and money tends to follow that. But money also comes and goes, right? So something that I think is important to know, and the impact that leaves is, if you want to make money, focus on your education, focus on your knowledge and your intelligence. If you want to have a lot of money, maybe then you focus on that. Or you want to have a lot of intelligence, money will follow that. So, yeah. Number 5, Gilbert's Law. The common way the phrase is, the biggest problem at work is that no one tells you what to do, yet they expect you to know. Another way of phrasing it is, when you take on a task, finding the best way to achieve the desired result is always your responsibility. Basically what this means is that a poor communication and unclear expectations in a workplace happen, right? And you're expected to know what to do. So when applying this, I suggest emphasizing the importance of leadership clarity, onboarding, and transparent communication. I'm a therapist. I'm a big fan of communication, and I don't think it's fair to have certain expectations for people when they're not aware of what's expected of them. So why this matters, it highlights the need for initiative and clear communication, and the impact it leaves is just huge. Like, you're going to have more efficient, workflow, you're going to have more efficient communication, more efficient relationships with people, and outcome of the company, the marriage, the parent-child relationship, whatever the case is, when you have clear communication on expectations, tasks that are, expected for people. Because at the end of the day, the responsibility falls on whoever failed to give clear expectations and outline of what they were wanting, right? Because unexpressed expectations that are not clearly expressed are just wishes. So, yeah. The key takeaway with this one is to communicate clearly and never assume that people just know what to do. So, yeah. Number 6 is Falkland's Law, which means that when it is not necessary to make a decision, it is necessary not to make a decision. Or in other words, if you don't have to make a decision about something, then do not decide. Meaning that by avoiding making decisions prematurely, if you don't have to decide yet, wait, because the more information or better timing may emerge. Y'all, this is something that I have really learned recently with wedding planning. So, for example, my fiance and I, we were trying to look for a wedding photographer for our wedding. And we really liked the person who did our engagement pictures. They were really sweet. They did a great job. They said that they had never done a wedding before. So we weren't sure if they would be up to do a wedding or if, basically we just wanted to see what they were willing to do, if that's something they think they'd be comfortable doing. And so I messaged her and I was like, hey, like, we would love to have you do our wedding, yada, yada, yada. Like, let us know if this is something you'd even be interested in. And that same night, she messaged me back. It was like 10:30 at night. And she said, yes, I would love to do it. She basically wrote out everything that she would offer us for doing the wedding. And then she gave us a price of, it was a really good deal. Typical wedding photography in Fargo area for about 8 hours costs around $4,000. And that's basically the minimum. A lot of prices can be higher than that even. And she gave us a quote for like $2,100, I think. And I told Jaden, I was like, oh my God, like, this is a really good deal. We gotta jump on this. We gotta tell her, yes, absolutely, we accept. And Jaden said, okay, well, it's 10:30 at night. Maybe let's just go to bed and we can message her tomorrow. And I was like, okay, all right. Yes, that's fair enough. Let's do that. And then the next day I woke up to a text saying, oops, sorry, like, had a long night. I gave you the wrong quote. It's actually, I think she said like 15 or 1,800. I have it in my messages. But basically, she gave us an even lower price. And we were like, holy crap, like, what? And then we accepted it. But that's just kind of another one of those good things come to those who wait sort of thing. But I'm the type of person where I want to make my decisions and I want to make it now. Because if I get to make those tough decisions right away, then that leaves me more time to relax later on. However, it is really true that if you can avoid making certain decisions prematurely without maybe any major consequences, then wait. And I guess an example of a major consequence would be, like, say the photographer I reached out to was, booking out dates, and she did a lot of weddings where maybe we would be taking a risk by waiting a day to message her back. Then that's a risk you run. However, we had low risk by waiting, and it actually yielded even better results. So yeah, you can really use this strategy in any areas of your life, but why it matters: it prevents premature choices that may lead to regret or inefficiency. In the impact, you make smarter decisions by waiting for the right moment and for better information. I think a lot of us can agree that at one point in our lives, we have made a split-second decision and later discovered more information and then had that regret later on, especially in our relationships. So I think the key takeaway here is don't act just for the sake of action. Patience is powerful and it's a virtue. I am not a patient woman. I need to practice that. And lately I've been discovering the impact that a law like this can have on a person. So Falkland's Law, if you don't have to make a decision about something, then don't decide. Number 7, this is the last one that I have for you all today. And this one is the Hicks Law, or the Hick-Hyman Law, which stands for more choices means slower decisions, reduced options to decide faster. Another way of saying this one is that the time it takes to make a decision increases with the number and complexity of choices, meaning the more options that you have, the longer it takes to choose. I think a lot of you have probably heard of the term decision fatigue. It's real. It's coming to get me. It's coming to get you. It's coming to get your sister, your wife, your husband, your partner, your dog, your sister's dog, your cat, your neighbor, everyone. Decision fatigue is a very real thing. And it's really hard to make a decision because you feel clouded and overwhelmed with all the options. So it's important to keep your choices simple, right? And it matters because it reduces like the cognitive overload and it speeds up decision making. I think it's really funny that this one's right after the Falklands Law, where we're like, if you don't have to make a decision, don't act. And then we're saying, speeds up decision making. But the difference with this one is that we want to reduce the options because the less options you have, the more maybe confidence you feel when making a decision. You create a smoother experience for yourself, whether it's for customers, yourself, people in your relationships. I know that when I've been to restaurants where the menu is just huge, I get so overstimulated, anxious, overwhelmed with that, especially if the server's coming up to me, asking me if I'm ready yet. Like, no, I've only looked at page 1 and there's 10 pages. I have not looked. And I think this could be applied to a lot of like daily things that we go through. So not just menus at a restaurant, but also like daily life of pre-planning your meals, like maybe doing meal prep so that you don't have that decision fatigue every morning of what am I going to have for lunch, or planning out your outfits the day before. This is why so many schools, like private schools, will do uniforms, because then people don't have to go through that decision fatigue and the time it takes to make that decision and like quote unquote waste that time doing that. They just know, okay, uniform, and then focus on school. So doing whatever you can to simplify those decisions is important. And I think the key takeaway here is that the simpler options that you have, or the less options that you have, the quicker you are to make a decision and to have that reduced, overwhelmed, anxious feeling. And that is the Hicks Law, or the Hick-Hyman Law. So yeah, the more you know, everyone. And so just to cap, I think that these laws are important to know, whether you liked only 5 out of 7 of them apply to you or only 1 applied to you. I do think that they're helpful to know because they offer different practical wisdom that can be applied to a range of lives, for navigating different complex decisions you might have to make. If you want to improve your productivity, if you want to save time. And yeah, it's just really helpful, I think, when you have these different tried and true things, whether it's for business, technology, or just simple everyday life. So yeah. Well, I appreciate you all hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. We are coming up, everyone, on 1 year of the pod. Not quite yet. We still have a couple more months, but it's coming up in January. And there's some really fun things in the works for the podcast and for all of you listeners. So make sure to stay tuned for that. But otherwise, you can watch everything on this podcast. You can watch it on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. I release a episode every Thursday. So make sure to tell all of your friends, your family, your coworkers, your restaurant server, whoever you meet on the street. But yeah, thanks for listening. I hope you all liked what you had to hear today. But until next week, embrace the chaos and find the beauty. Bye.